The biggest myth that we are going to burst from this podcast, people are worrying about replacing by AI.
What happens if Elon Musk gets pissed that I quit my job? The exact same project was built in less than 2 days. And I said, well, I need to get ready for the new world. Because if you want to compete in the post-AI economy, you need to optimize everything. In my mind, there is no limit of amount of people Might is going to need in the future. We're building things that people are still theorizing about, that are still being written on research papers. The reality is a lot of jobs are going to get replaced by these systems. What does that post-AI economy look like? But I want to be ready for that world. We're going to be busier than ever before. If you're a creator, if you're a builder, you're never going to be busier than you're going to be in the next years. The biggest fear I have right now is
So hello, we are with Ahmed Mekallach and we are on this episode 2 of Prestige Founders Show, and this is going to be amazing because we have kind of a same vibe of rock and rolling. So let's do this. So Ahmed, what's on your mind right now?
I'm excited to have this conversation with you, man.
Nice to meet you on this show. Would like
Nice
to
meet
know,
you too.
what are you working on currently?
So many things, so many different things. I'm working on building simple systems for clients that are looking to control their technology, oftentimes with their own IT departments or their own developers. So we just come in and show them the tools. I'm sure you've been using tools for coding today, and there's a lot of different ones, a lot of tools that a lot of people don't know about, especially people in the tech industry. They're still not aware of what's fully going on. And so we come in and we show them and we help them. On my end, I'll personally build out back-end logic or functions, you can say, or sequence of functions, and then hand that over to them so they can wrap it around and integrate it the way they see fit, because they know what they're doing. But I got to see that back-end logic built by people who actually see the what and the why happens a lot quicker when you vibe code it, this new term that people are using. And so it's finding the right mix, finding the right talent that essentially is able to produce code the right way and use the strengths of people, traditional developers as well as people who know the business and who know the what and the why. And then the how is based on the people you put on the bus with you. So a lot of time is spent finding the right people to put on the bus to mix the strengths of, business savvy people as well as tech savvy people. So we've been working on a lot of different things. One of the recent things that I've built about a week ago with the new O3 Pro model, it's always been an idea in my head. How do you interact? How do you build a chatbot that interacts with 160,000 entries and give you precise answers? And when you have that kind of data set, you're way beyond the 1 million token context of ChatGPT 4.1, or you're way beyond the Gemini 2 million. And so how do you actually retrieve precise information without necessarily needing to use AI? And so we built something pretty interesting that we're going into production now with a client, self-building tools based on the schema, and then tools are used to retrieve information to feed into the model so that it can provide very precise answers without consuming tokens, really. So that opened up my mind to a lot of things this past couple of weeks. O3 Pro's been pretty magical. Have you used it?
No, I didn't get my hands on it now because I didn't have the use case yet. But I'm glad to have that you're doing some amazing things with it. So educate me a little bit for someone that, like me, who don't know nothing about these things like O3 model. So what's been different with this model and how it's helping you in your current business and projects?
O3 Pro right now is, from my point of view, I did an experiment. I rebuilt a system I built about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. It had taken me a good 2 months to get done back then. So of course now between then and now, I know a lot more. But still, today with O3 Pro and a mix of O3 Pro, O3 and some coding tools, coding agents, the exact same project was built in less than 2 days and better. So in terms of time and output and also quality of output, that's what I'm noticing. O3 Pro is going to think of things that you're not thinking about. So if you're a vibe coder and you haven't taken the time to actually learn fundamentals, or learn things through first principles, the O3 Pro is helping you fill in those gaps. So it just makes it easier for the tech savvy people to integrate what you're doing because they don't have to rework as much as what was being done before. But what I've been seeing a lot is I produce code and then my team has to rework it. and integrate it into the systems. And that takes time. With O3 Pro now, the code that I'm outputting is very minimally being touched by the very team that integrates, which is interesting to see because it's capturing different things you should look out for, edge cases, error cases that otherwise you would not know what you don't know. So that's one of the big differences I see with O3 Pro. It's showing you what you don't know, and it helps you move forward a lot faster. A lot more work gets done, essentially. It compresses time needed to output complex solutions that would otherwise take weeks or months, which is pretty magical.
Oh my god. I'm listening to it. I think I should get my hands on it very quick.
$250 a month, but you have a PhD level of whatever it is that you want. I use it primarily for coding or for researching my code bases, but it's incredible. It's a game changer, really. It's a really huge step up. Not too many people are talking about it, which I don't know why, but it's really a step up.
So what I know about you is that you came to this field building systems with AI to help your clients, but from the beginning you used to be a construction engineer. Is that right?
Process engineer, yeah. So I've always optimized workflows. So I've always thought in systems. And I think that's one of the key things people need to use these AI tools as efficiently as possible, being able to think in systems, being able to really see the really big picture from the ground up. And of course, if you don't know what you don't know, then you think you're seeing things from the big picture. But it's happened to me a lot of times where I work on something and it's like, oh man, I didn't see big enough. Like I should have seen it just a bit bigger. But you use it and you protect it. I'm a civil engineer by training, and I worked in the construction industry for about 10 years across different roles. So I got to see the granular workflows, the what and the why of many different roles interacting with real life built environments. So really, what do humans do in the field? What do they do in the office? How do they build a business? How do they market? How do they XYZ? So as a business developer, directors of sales and estimating, director of special projects, so integrating new tools or new systems into existing teams, existing departments. And 2 years ago when ChatGPT 4.0 came out, 4.0, March 14th, I believe it was, 2023, and I started using it and I was like, oh wow, I'm talking now to a tiny little brain. It's going to help me build little functions. So back then I started building function by function by function and linking them together in Python to build out workflows or build out systems. And it was really like function by function by function that I was able to operate with GPT 4.1. You fast forward 2 years, you're now building sequence by sequence by sequence, or sequence of functions by sequence of functions. So determining the end, the start and end becomes the game now. Like how much do you get done in a session, essentially, and what should be the start and end point. If you start too small, you're using a model that's working way too much for what you need to do. And honestly, a lot of the times, some of my devs that work with me, they laugh. They're like, Ahmed, I could have just done that by hand. It would have taken 5 minutes. And there you are, like sitting there with a model for 45 minutes handling a small, tiny thing. But in retrospect, if you think big enough and you eliminate your start and end points, now all of a sudden in that same time, I get to do work that a traditional dev who's not using the tools this way would spend days, whereas on my end, I can spend maybe 2 or 3 hours to output that. And then, of course, it needs to be integrated. So it's a pretty magical thing. One of the things I say a lot is, a software developer who knows the how, but doesn't know the what and the why, he doesn't go too far. So he knows how to code. Tell him what to code, he'll code. And if he's passionate about something, he'll work passionately towards that solution, which is a solution towards some of his lived experience and based on their experiences. But if you don't know the what and the why in the real world of what you're addressing, in the industries you're addressing, then you're limited. And then someone who knows the what and the why, but doesn't know how to code, you talk a lot. You talk a lot and there's just talk. You don't actually build anything. And then when you have someone that knows the what and the why and the how, and you pair them with AI, now that's a whole other game. And now all of a sudden, the what and the why gets filled in the gaps for devs who know the how. You can ask the questions and understand your known unknowns. So now a developer who didn't know the what and the why can actually iterate with AI and figure that out and actually get a fundamental groundwork. And someone who didn't know how to code, who doesn't know how to code, and now has access to these tools, but they know deeply the what and the why, can now pair with AI and fill in the gaps of coding and produce outputs that, although need to be integrated and although need to be adjusted in terms of scalability and security, etc., they're still building the core, the hard part, which is the handling of the transformation of data, the transformation of the sequence of work of why this data needs to get from point A to point B, and how does it get from point A to point B, and why does it get from point A to point B, and why is it named that way, and why is the terminology that way. So we're filling gaps. That's what AI is doing. And from my view, I'm seeing it like a mesh, and we're sort of merging expertises from different fields. And someone really good at one thing is now using AI to learn their known unknowns. So their known unknowns are things you know you don't know. And you can use AI to sort of iterate and learn those known unknowns and start deeply learning into this. My first year in business, I spent learning 12 hours a day, essentially, learning concepts and then digging into those concepts. Maybe not the first year, the first 8 months. But the rate of learning is just crazy, like really insane if you actually sit there and want to learn and want to extract the knowledge from the models and then test it, right, to see does it work? Is what you're seeing applicable? Can you actually create something that works and does the outcome you're looking for? So learning and testing, and then that cycle just keeps going, and it happens for everyone on my team. Essentially, we learn and we test, whether they're traditional software developers or whether it's like me or the people in my network that we're helping. Fundamentally, that's the iteration loop. You learn, you test, you see the outcome, and you just keep doing that until you figure it out. And it's still shorter in terms of the time needed to do that than traditional education or traditional iterations, which is pretty crazy. So it's exciting.
That's a lot to grasp. Now, I got many questions from this little conversation, but I want to ask this is when you just started, right? What was your what and why?
So I've always looked at reclaiming my time ever since I was a kid. I built scripts for Diablo 2 to automate gameplay back in the day. It's against terms and conditions, but I hated the idea of sitting behind a computer and clicking and typing the same things to get to an outcome when, I'm like, this can be automated. I can have a simple RPA script that sort of moves my mouse and clicks on keys of my keyboard to like aim, which is really just clicking to a destination. So my first exposure to these kinds of automations, I was a kid. I was 12 years old, 11 years old, maybe even before that, maybe 9 years old, 10 years old. And ever since then, I've always looked at how do I optimize my time. So even in my job of 10 years, every role I've had and every department I've been into, I've always optimized. They still use my tools to today. And they're not code, it's systems within Excel, algorithms within Excel cells that communicate with one another with the entities that I prepare for my boss essentially at the time and for the company at the time, which was a really big company. I've always been doing that. And the what and the why is when GPT 4.0 came out and I saw that, wow, I can learn the pieces I was missing to really take the kinds of systems I was building to another level. I quit my job. And I started my group, and I was making good money. And I just saw the opportunity. I saw it clearly what was coming. And I said, well, I need to get ready for the new world. And getting ready for the new world means, in my view now, and especially now after 2 years of doing this, is really knowing how to use these systems to their fullest potential. Because as the systems get better, you knowing how to use them gets better as well. As they do more, I get to build bigger and bigger things and more impactful things. So all the systems I've built even for myself, my Cody, for example, I'm not sure if you've heard of my Cody. I've shown it to Harsh, but essentially it's my brain map. I'm able to take in requirements from clients and granularly see all of the needs that they have and have full control of the output. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of words. We're talking about thousands of API calls to OpenAI's API, all acting in our orchestration, all acting in a symphony, I call it really. Like it's starting from a first point and the chain of thoughts and loops, and I call it the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act, and being able to expand from a very small seed into a full-blown source of truth. And then from there, we iterate and we code from there. So we have all of our missions ready, and I'm able to communicate with my devs, communicate with my clients, and everyone is sharing the same source of truth within a system that I control and I own. And that's what I sell. The what and the why is when I was in the construction industry, we had many SaaS products, and we paid a lot of money for those SaaS products. And the SaaS products didn't do what we needed them to do. And when I saw that, that's why I built my own systems when I was in the job, because it's like, I don't want to work decentralized this way. Everything needs to be centralized. Everything needs to be unified. Everything needs to be streamlined and as easy as possible for me, especially at the director role. I was managing when I was a PM in Labrador. I was working in the middle of nowhere in a job site living in a camp. I was living in a 4 feet by 8 foot long container, essentially, for 3.5 years, building a hydroelectric dam in Labrador. And I had a team of over 67 ironworkers and a team of over 11 staff. And just the amount of data and information that needed to be managed. So I built systems to streamline that. And I can go on long with that story there, but essentially I always built my own systems. So when AI became commercially available via ChatGPT, because it's been around for a while, I could not access it. I could not just simply go and type something and see an answer. So OpenAI in my mind, I like them a lot. So I know there's a lot of people that don't like that system, essentially, because they are the system. But they are the ones that gave access to people like me at the very first. Google could have done it a while ago and they didn't. They published a paper, right? Attention is all you need. So and look at everything they do today. So in my mind, why didn't Google give us access to this in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 when we had so much time on our hands during COVID? The amount of stuff I could have done with access to a tool like this commercially and easily would have been unreal, instead of like sitting at home and like, oh, we're in lockdown. I'm not sure how it was. You're in India, right?
Yes, it was a pretty much lockdown for more than 1 year.
That's it. So you know how much you can do in that time and how much you can learn, and a tool like that could have been unbelievable. And they didn't, but OpenAI did. So to me, they gave access. They sort of open sourced. So the OpenAI, I like the name because to me it's like the most powerful source of open source. Because it's not just open source information that I can go on the website and on GitHub repos and go and look and read through code, or go on the internet and X archives and look through reports and articles and stuff like that. I have a source. I have a tool that gives me the information that I need in the moment that I need it and in the way that I need it, as long as I know what to ask. And that to me is fundamentally a paradigm shift for what's coming. The individual has more power today than ever before. And as individuals, we have the power to. The what and the why is giving power to individuals to really do like I'm doing if they want to. I control my own systems. I see something that I like, I build my own. I see a tool that comes out, I look at it, I understand it, I build it. So I don't have to pay the subscription fee because it takes maybe a few days to get something working locally on my computer. And I am in control of how I interact with the world around me. I programmatically interact with my social media accounts if I want to. I built it and I stopped using it. I can programmatically interacting with my emails. I chose not to anymore, but I can. I built it. And even the notion of there's so many things we can do. Like the limit is your imagination, essentially, which is magical in a way. So it's showing people that truth. As a business, as an individual, you're no longer chained by the existing legacy systems. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do now and build whatever it is that you want to do.
You are inspiring me so much with this. I think a lot of people listen to this thing, but you have said right now, you have so much power as an individual right now than ever before. So just to summarize this conversation real quick, you quit your job and build your company, Might Group, Might Cody, to build systems for yourself to save your time because you were passionate about this since the very beginning, since you were children, right? And now you're helping companies in your same industry to do the same, to help their time to build systems for them by using this new profound technology that has been given by OpenAI from 2023, right? And now you are working with the most advanced model of OpenAI is O3 Pro, right? So
exactly.
Let's go over there because I'm very curious. Suppose I am a construction company and I have multiple projects going on and I have never touched an AI. How you are going to help me?
So I come from the industry, so I've already built the systems, so I know the business. I won't get into it here because that's the value today, the domain-specific knowledge, the domain-specific data, and the what and the why. So having come from that industry for 10 years, I know the what and the why. I worked with the largest steel manufacturer in North America, so we were sort of like an institutional company, and we operated with a lot of data on very large, important projects for our infrastructure in Canada and the United States as well. So having that knowledge is how I help them. I know exactly what they're doing, and I also know what they're not doing and that should be being done. And I built the systems that help them do that, help them streamline that, estimating systems, project management systems, field management systems, you name it, essentially. I've built them all already in the past, and now we're building it AI powered. So even where I see that AI can be introduced, For me, I really see AI as a means of building the tools that allow you to do whatever it is that you need to do. And ideally, the tools that I build don't use AI. It doesn't use AI. It's just fundamental tools that are needed to streamline, to act as a foundation. And from that foundation, later on, you can probably wrap that around AI systems that we'll see when we come to that point. But in the term right now, I build more the foundational data layers of what they need to have to operate in a digital way, instead of printing papers, instead of printing on paper, instead of working in decentralized SaaS platforms. One good tool is Bluebeam that a lot of people use. I built my own Bluebeam. So it's like a PDF viewer that allows me to mark up PDF pages. We can build our own. It doesn't take that long now to build your own PDF viewer that marks it up and stuff, and you don't have to pay $5,000 a year per user to use the system. So it's things like that. We already see what works.
It's like having more control over your data and kind of things that you're doing in your business locally. Wow, awesome.
Total control.
What challenges have you faced like doing that? I think like whenever we first start to get on some technology or to build something, we face many challenges, because if we already knew how to do it, then we have already done it. So what was your challenges?
Expectations. So my challenge really has been managing expectations. So a lot of people are going to ask me to build, like I've gotten so many requests to build takeoff automation tools, like actually extracting quantities from drawings. And I'll refuse that because I know that that's going to be a money pit. I know that maybe it's possible. There's people that have been spending years and millions of dollars and they still have not found a solution that me, as a director of estimator in the past, that I would trust that system without having to verify everything that it did. So managing expectations. So, they'll come up and ask for things that are like, sure, but now that's like a research and development sort of project, and that's different than, doing what I'm saying here, which I know works because I've built it already. And if you want it, then this is like a commodity. I sell this to you as a commoditized piece of tech. So it's very cheap and it spreads that way, essentially, And that's the idea that I'm having, essentially. If I build enough tools and enough systems, then I can really just commoditize it with very minimal tweaks and customizations. And all my clients receive the entire repository. So they receive the source code end to end. And that's the whole point, because I see a world where companies are going to be able to maintain their own code bases, especially a code base that was already built on strong foundations. Things like Codec, they're pretty fucking magical when it's operating within a nice environment. So, I'm in that line. So the challenge is mostly is that in managing expectations, also speed. So people will think I actually had to turn down a client after 2 weeks of working and gave his money back too, because he, super into AI and everything, and he was expecting things to just happen after a few days. And I'm like, no, this is still going to take 2, 3, 4 months. And you knew this before we started. And I don't want to work in this environment. So it also allows me, like, we're in a new world now. So, you can pick the people you work with. So one of the challenges is that expectations over speed. You should be done in like 2 days. Well, it's like, we have to plan things out first. There's still time needed to properly weave everything together. And these are complex systems. Like this in particular was an estimating system. Like you don't want to rush this. Like you want this to be done right. So it's like managing those kinds of expectations too. The speed, like, oh, you're using AI, it should be super quick. But no, it makes it much quicker. This solution would have taken years. And now you're telling you I could do it probably in 4 or 5 months, but it still takes time, and you can't expect outputs in 2 weeks. And the worst part, they got the outputs in 2 weeks. The whole UI was coded out, the whole front end code was done. So it's really the expectations. People are never going to be, it's pretty surprising. Like O3 Pro, I'm already like over it, but it's a magical tool, and it's as if I'm noticing I get used to things so fast, and not just me, everyone's getting used to things so fast. It's no longer like, wow, this is unbelievable. It's more like, oh, it should be faster. Give me more, do more. And it just doesn't end. So managing that kind of thing. There's clients that are going to be like that, and I would just avoid them. And like not even start anything with clients like that. Focusing on the right partners that understand what's coming and wanna be ready for a post-AI economy and don't want to be commoditized. Maybe do some commoditizing themselves, but not be the ones commoditized. So for that, you need to be in control of your tech. Otherwise, you get commoditized in the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years, easily. Because someone else in your business, in your industry who does do that, well, they will gravitate all of the work towards them, and you become a commodity, and you no longer provide any real value anymore. What's the scary part? It's everyone needs to digitize, everyone needs to plug in, because the future is businesses as nodes communicating with one another extremely efficiently. And you want to be one of those nodes. You don't want to be one of the legacy dinosaur businesses that are sort of plugged into a node that was created by someone else. And now that person has commoditized you. And you may feel like this is okay, but in reality, it's not okay. You've built a business for 40, 50, 60 years. You've been around for so long. You want to stay around for the future. And to stay around, you need to become a node. You need to become a node. And to become a node, you need to plug in. That's a little bit the
I got you.
expectations on people. Like, it's going to take time.
Expectations. I can relate with that. To give you more context, as a service provider, expectations are, it's kind of a commoditized challenge for everyone. For example, we had some clients of us that have been growing very fast on their social media, specifically on Instagram. Like in 6 months, 6 to 9 months of period, some have grown to like millions of followers, right? 300,000 to millions of followers. And when we market it, because we get that authority from our results, what happened is some people came up with the wrong expectations, right? Can you help me grow like 10,000 followers in 1 month? Or can you help me grow like 50,000 followers in 3 months? We were like, what? What is this? There's not a magical key. It's just a sort of process that works very well for someone, but might not work for you. We have to figure that out. It will take time. I have this fundamental right now. Like, there are two types of clients. One, those who expect high results in less amount of time, and one are who expects like results but in more time. Like, they don't have some out of the world expectations. They understand business, they understand numbers, and they understand the process. But many times it's not our fault or their fault. Sometimes they get wrong expectations from the environment.
There's that, and I always like to say it's my fault. So like, I see the same thing you're seeing, but I always like to say it is my fault, in a sense. You need to set the expectations. So, like the client that I gave the money back to after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I spent over 80 hours on his project and everything, and I rather not have a problem, and I gave him all his money back, than deal with any sort of issues or anything like that. Because fundamentally, this is meant to be a really fun process. This is new. We build things that don't exist yet. I'll give you an example. That chatbot I built last week, that's essentially is self-healing, self-building, and continuously builds new tools as users query it over time. That was in some paper I got to see on some X posts this week. Some people that shared something called the ICANN or something like that. And it's a paper that was released a couple of weeks ago. And I read that paper and I'm like, holy fuck, I built that. Like, I actually built it. So I'm like, setting the expectations like really from the beginning, and then working with people that understand we're building things that don't exist yet. We're building things that people are still theorizing about, that are still being written on research papers with no outcomes. And we're focused more on providing outcomes. So it's systems that actually produce the outcome that you said you wanted. And that's also the other thing, is setting the expectations with them is, what do you want? What are your outcomes? And how do you track that? How do you track that over time? Last 6 months, how do you go back 6 months ago and say, you said this, and that's what you wanted? And if we change, it's fine, we change. But you need to have that partnership where every client that works with us, nothing is lump sum, nothing is hard priced, because we know it evolves, and we make sure they understand that as we build, you're going to start seeing other possibilities. You're going to start understanding more of what's and whys based on what we're building for you. And you need to understand that if you add this stuff, it adds more time, and we incorporate it, and things change over time, right? So it's having that system in place that provides that transparency for the clients, for the development team, for the business itself at the organizational level, really having this environment, and that environment to manage these kinds of things that don't exist yet, things that are being built, that are being willed into existence in a way, right? We're dreaming these things up into existence, which is magical in a way. Yeah, we have to manage those expectations. So it's my fault. I always like to say it's my fault, because you can make sure the expectation once you begin working with the client is very clear. And so when I go through that experience of the 2 weeks where I gave the money back, I should have at the beginning, I always like to look back. I should have re-emphasized and reiterated very, very, very clearly the first month is planning. The things that I'm producing for you right now is part of the planning phase. It may look like it's code. It is code. But we're planning right now. We're just looking at outcomes and seeing, are we aligning with you? The first month is meant to put these pieces together. And then we start actually building from that point on. I could have made that much clearer to set expectations better. Like, it could be, hey, in 3 days I might present to you something that looks like a lot, but this is just part of the process, and it takes time to get from that to the actual production system that you're going to use instead of what you're currently doing. And also expectations of, even when the system is ready, You can't expect to flip a switch and stop doing what you're currently doing and use the system. You need to use both in parallel. You need to sort of validate everything in parallel. And then once they're validated, then you make the switch progressively. But these expectations, this can all be communicated.
Yeah, as an expert, that's our job. That's your job as an expert, is to set those expectations and to make sure that they know what is going to happen and how this actually works. That's why you are helping them. That's an obvious. Now, what's the myth about AI you want to bust today? That misconception.
The myth. My opinion changed so much. 2 years ago, I don't even want to pretend like I can bust a myth, because 2 years ago when I first started, I built systems that kept me in the loop, because I believed that you couldn't let AI judge at certain steps. You needed to be in the loop throughout the entire process. Last week with the chatbot, I got to see that, oh man, I can let it self-judge itself and self-build certain tools. And I'm not sure how far I can go with that, but at the very least, tools that interact with a database that can be automatically generated based on queries and automated without even the human in the loop. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. So in terms of myth, I don't even know what to say, because now the more that I see, the more I'm starting to realize that maybe, we really will automate cognitive work fully over time. And what that will mean is that as individuals, as a society, we'll be able to do things that we can't even imagine right now in terms of size and scope of what we'll be building that will require the human in the loop to get done. But what we do today, like all existing systems, I can bet by the end of this year or the end of next year, 2026, a Salesforce can be autonomously built without a human in the loop. Honda, or accounting system, or a marketing campaign, like sending out emails, mass emails, not I want to send one email. I just want to be able to manage campaigns and be able to send 500 emails a week, whatever the case may be. I'm pretty sure that by the end of this year, you'll be able to speak those into existence without the human in the loop, other than your original intent. I'm starting to believe that more and more as time is going on. But 2 years ago, I would have told you the myth is the AI will do things by itself, and that's not true. You need to be in the loop 100% of the time throughout the entire process. But what I'm starting to see now is that, yes, that's still true, but it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger of where is the human in the loop? Where do you inject that creativity? Where do you inject the oversight? That's changing, and that's changing fast. That's changing really fast. And I didn't believe that 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was convinced we'll always need, we'll never be able to just create systems that just operate entirely independently by themselves and 24/7 sort of gets real work done in life. And now I'm starting to see a possibility of that being the case, of being able to create even businesses that are fully autonomous. Maybe not, construction businesses, but businesses, a lot of types of businesses, a lot of services that are being done now that could be fully pretty much over time, fully automated. I'm starting to see that, and it makes me feel a bit like, oh, wow, okay. And that leads me to now, I've always wanted to be sovereign, but right now I depend on compute. So I have a laptop here that I started experimenting with. It's a 5090 Razer, a Stealth, okay? So this is top of the line. This is in terms of individual compute that you can just have at home and bring it around with you or whatever. This is the best you can get right now. But I get 30 tokens per second out of this. 30 tokens per second in terms of output. Well, you don't go anywhere with that. You don't build complex, deep systems with that. And that led me to think, okay, well then maybe there's other ways. How do you make that laptop as efficient as possible? And that led me to the chatbot thing that I had built. I'm like, if I can build a system that at 30 tokens per second can sort of self-build something that allows it to sort of use tools rather than use compute for inference, rather than use inference, then maybe that laptop can be used to do actually very big things. But you need to reimagine how you work with data. You need to reimagine how you funnel that, how you orchestrate that. And that's what I'm starting to experiment with over the last 2 weeks, which opens my mind to other possibilities that 2 years ago would have been that's impossible. But now when I witnessed that chatbot just building itself, it's oh my God. And I was able to do it in 2 days. And I'm not a coder. Okay, maybe today I should start saying I am a coder, because I spent 2 years really learning in hyperdrive everything I need to learn. And I've always been a system thinker and a process engineer. So by this point, maybe I should label myself maybe a solution architect or something like that. But what does that mean when someone like me in 2 days can build something that is only being theorized about? And that's pretty That's pretty eye-opening.
Insane. It's
What
insane.
happens when a billion people can start doing things like this? Because at the end of the day,
Oh
the
my God.
outcome matters. The outcome matters. I mean, just today, Facebook, Google, and all these people, all these social media platforms, they just got hacked. And all of our usernames and emails and passwords just got hacked. And these guys are big tech. They're the ones that we think are the standard, the best. I mean, even Google, my Google accounts, they all just got hacked in the last 24 hours. 8 billion accounts and passwords. Nothing is secure. As soon as we go digital, nothing is secure. But the outcomes matter. And then how do you mitigate for those kinds of vulnerabilities? And that's something to learn. And maybe AI is going to help us create these kinds of walls or securities that really allow us to protect ourselves 100%. But for that to happen, I think we need to be in full control of our tech, in full control of our data, and it can't be aggregated to one company to decide for us how our data is being used. Even OpenAI, like I use them and everything, but New York Times forcing them to keep the outputs of users and store that on their database. I don't know if you heard about that. That kind of ruling, if it rules that way, in other words, outcomes are being stored in perpetuity, because they want to be able to query what happened there or what may have happened there, whatever the case may be. But if you're keeping all the outputs, of course they're going to train on that. Of course that's going to be used in one way or another if it's not already being the case. There's a lot of things I'm starting to think about, even in terms of sovereignty. It's like, okay, well, maybe now I need to control my compute. So the laptop was part of that, saying, okay, what can I do with my laptop fully locally with no internet connection? And how far can I push that? Because ultimately, we want to be in full control. And maybe we won't control everything. Like maybe power won't be something we control. But maybe compute is something we can control. And maybe it's something that as a community, as a world, we can work decentralized in a way with people, like-minded people. And ultimately, that's the kind of community I'm trying to grow. These are the people I'm growing, that we have this source eventually that we don't need anyone else. We have our own system. It's supplying us. It doesn't need to be a billion people. It's good for my community, maybe 500, maybe 1,000 people. And that's all that's needed. And we operate in this new post-AI economy independently. So a lot of things like that are starting to...
I love this idea of having control of when you can control compute, then you can keep your output to yourself, and it's amazing. So what models do you recommend to do this locally?
Oh, well, there's a bunch. There's Llama, but for this laptop here, I used DeepSeek, a quantized version of DeepSeek. But it's slow. So one of the first things I saw, not only is a token per second low, but it's just also just slow. Like I'm looking at it work and it's just so slow. And when I look at my workflow, like my Cody, for example, it's thousands of API calls that happen in parallel. So how do I do that on a laptop? And that makes me to think maybe the way I'm going about things needs to be reimagined, because I'm leveraging OpenAI's compute to the maximum that I can, that my imagination allows, because they give us access to 150 million tokens per minute and requests per minute, which is enormous. On a laptop, you can't do that. You got what? You got 16 cores, you got 32 threads, and you can do whatever you can with that, essentially. Like it's limited in that way. So we need to be imaginative. What do I suggest? I suggest people using OpenAI. For now, build systems that work, and then you can look at how you take these existing tools. Like in a nutshell, when you use OpenAI to output tools, you're sort of building yourself your own brain, because every tool you build, every system you build is knowledge, is codified knowledge that is there. So now in 2 years of building, I have maybe over 2 million lines of code of structured systems written out, different product, like different systems, different tools. But that is a memory graph of possibilities, of clear inputs and outputs and transformations that in the future, once I figure this out, how do I optimize this laptop? Well, maybe I can leverage all this data to sort of also have my own coding outputs using my own data that I've cultivated using OpenAI. So OpenAI being the facilitator, and you're not supposed to train your own models with OpenAI outputs, but it doesn't matter. Like the reality is, when you're building for yourself or you're building for a small community, they can't do anything. And they are themselves taking the data from the internet, and they are themselves like training on things without having asked me for permission.
Yes.
So at the same time, we're in a world right now where it's the wild, wild west in a way. And as long as you see clearly that there's only two things that are gauging what's going on, energy and compute, you need to control what you can. And right now, what I can control, my circle of influence versus my circle of concern, what I can control is my outputs. I can build things that output what I need them to output. My next circle of concern is compute. How do I have my own compute to do the same thing I've been doing now with OpenAI? And then the third circle of concern, as my influence grows, will be, okay, now how do I power myself as well and be totally independent from the legacy systems that are out there?
from
Sovereign.
like OpenAI and other models and do it yourself.
Other model, even just generally other models. Like if I build my own models using my own brain, nothing can ever beat that because it's just doing what I need it to do. I don't need to have a 5 trillion parameter model to get things done, you know? So as soon as you have the data ready, which is in a way, when you're building these systems, I always build them in a way that data is structured. All the outputs are structured so they can be leveraged in the future to hopefully build my own model of whatever I need to do using my compute, using my energy. And that's ultimately the goal. Like total sovereignty, total control, total ownership of every technological stack that I use to interact with my world and provide that to my community as well. It's whoever wants to do that, whoever wants to go down that
Yeah.
route.
Damn, you got so much knowledge into you. You should be sharing a lot. It's just my suggestion. You
I
should
share it
be.
openly. I build in public. I share it openly just because, you know, for this to work, a lot of people need to be doing the same thing and need to feel inspired to
Yes,
do it. So a
yes.
lot of my ideas, I
Because
share it openly.
we are taking any other model, let's say OpenAI, we are using heavily OpenAI, and if for some reason OpenAI revoked the API access, then your whole system burns down into nothing. So it's very important to go there, like the independent part, the sovereignty, the control, that, okay, once you have figured that out with the help of the best facilitator in the market, let's say OpenAI, now you have to move to the second concern. How can you do that by yourself? And then how can you do it independently? Perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the only way. I'm not afraid of OpenAI turning off the API. That's not going to happen. That is their business, essentially. They want to be the intelligence provider. Their API is the main business, ultimately will become the main business revenue stream, in my view. When people wake up and they start plugging into that intelligence because infrastructure is handled, compute is handled, intelligence is handled, and you only need to worry about your system, your structure, your transformations, your outputs, your code base, essentially. That's all you need to worry about, and everything else is handled. A lot of people will like this, and especially that it's institutionalized. It's part of the system. I mean, they're with the government. They're building Stargate. They're making it into a utility. I mean, you have the United Arab Emirates that are giving it to their population for free. Every citizen has access to, I think, the Pro version, even at least the Plus version of ChatGPT, for example. So I'm seeing it becoming institutionalized. It will always be there. I'm not afraid of like the systems I built today with OpenAI being an issue 10 years from now, 5 years from now. It's more just fundamentally, if I build with OpenAI and then laws make it so that, they have to keep the outputs. They have to sort of analyze these outputs. They have to sort of interact with these inputs, even, or whatever the case may be. I'm not comfortable with that. So I can bet that a lot of businesses wouldn't be comfortable with that either. Like I wouldn't want my brain to be in one place. So ideally, I would want my brain to be where I can touch it, where I can see it, where I can smell it, and I could feel the heat buzzing from the infrastructure. I think ideally that's what people would aim for, and as long as that becomes as easy as possible to do, and I think Nvidia is doing a great job at that. And I have to see now with their laptop here. And they're also selling these smaller compute, sort of like Pis, Raspberry Pis, that are just purely used for inference, and you can sort of use them and you stack them, and they're really efficient or whatever the case may be. These are all things in my roadmap, like 2026, that I have to start looking at and seeing, okay, first, how do I take my primary system, my Kodi, and completely move it to a local, totally sovereign environment and still allow the external world to interact with it. Because I mean, even now, like you can use these laptops as the servers, and you just need redundancy. So you need 2 laptops, and laptops run on batteries. So if you have a laptop that has 12 hours of battery, even if you lose energy, and you're in a country like Canada, you never go out of power for more than 12 hours. So technically, you just need an internet service like Starlink that will always work, and you need power. And you sort of have that. So technically, we don't even need AWS. We don't even need these things anymore. My laptop has 4 terabytes of storage. 4 terabytes of storage is a lot. And if I get to a point where I need more than that, then, there's other means and method of storing data, and I can just buy more SSD drives or whatever the case may be and store it. There's so many things we can do now to be totally like independent of what it currently is out there, thanks to the technology allowing us to think of these things and actually bring them to reality. Before, the gate was knowledge. You couldn't even begin to start planning around this because you don't have the knowledge.
Now you have the knowledge.
Now you have the knowledge. Yeah, now you have the knowledge.
Knowledge is just king right now. So what are you planning next? What's your purpose now?
What I'm planning next is just having a few anchor clients. We just signed a new one for the North American Ironworkers, a big client, an institution, and cultivating also in healthcare. We're in the healthcare sector working with a hospital. I need to focus on that too and start expanding that. So I got them bought on building their own operating system. And they want to experiment. It's a research project. So that's another way, by the way, of like going about things. Hey, let's just make this a research project. It doesn't need to be an actual project. It's just a research project. Put 50,000, 100,000, and let's just explore and see.
Yes.
And institutions are willing to do stuff like that. And then there's no risk because you're just exploring, you're researching, you're building outcomes, and then they see the outcomes and they're like, okay, well then let's explore this now. Let's explore that now. So that's one way I go about things. Like, let's do a research project or let's do a proof of concept. It might fail, it might not fail, but it also sets expectations too in this world too, like in the new world. So yeah, it's just cultivating the existing clients, keeping them happy, growing the team eventually as well. We're only 3 right now, but the idea was to stay 3 and see how much can we do with just 3 people before we start hiring more people. Because if you want to compete in the post-AI economy, you need to optimize everything as much as we can. And then for sure, once we do more and more and more, we'll need more people. But I want to bring in more people once we have the environment for them to operate them at the maximum output that they can. So we'll always need more people. In my mind, there is no limit of amount of people Might is going to need in the future. But they're going to come and work in an environment where that one person would be 1,000 of that person 5 years ago. And building the environment for them to operate in, essentially. But we'll always need more people.
When you say like post-AI economy, what is the definition of post-AI economy?
My definition is, well, let me ask you this question. What is money used for?
Money is used to build something like a tool or get something.
And how do you get something? How do you build something? What's the common denominator that every dollar spent?
Trade. So money is used for essentially trading. Someone can do that we don't have, and we give them money, and they give us that or do it for us. Like it's for
And
trading.
what did it take for them to give you what they're giving you? How did they give you what they give you? What are you buying? What is the common, like, get to first principles. What is money used for?
That's a very good question. To the first principle, money is used for exchange.
Exchange of what?
Exchange of goods, services, products.
How are goods and services done? How do they come to existence?
How they come to existence is because we have necessities, we have needs, we have desires.
But how do they come to be? Let's say my good is building you commoditized software. I'm giving you software.
Okay.
How did this software come to be? What had to be done? What had to be spent for that software to exist?
Knowledge
And
experience, and the one who can execute it.
And what is the one that is, I want you to answer the question. What is the one that executed it? What did he spend to execute it?
His time.
His time. His time. Time.
Yeah.
Time is the common denominator of every single dollar spent. So what is a post-AI economy? Well, what happens when you compress cognitive work, the time needed for cognitive work to be done? What is money then used for? So if you're able to automate the building of a chatbot, what do you then associate that value? Compute time, inference time, token time? What are you spending money on when it's not a human anymore doing XYZ thing that it was a human doing before? The reality is a lot of jobs are going to get replaced by these systems. So what happens when time is being spent by a machine and not a human? What does that post-AI economy look like? So I want to be ready for that world. So if I'm a business that's providing the service of building systems, no matter the size and complexity of that system, I will still be spending my time, and my time is going to be much more valuable in a world where we have machines spending time to do things. So if someone comes to me to spend my time to use the machines to build what they want, or to use the machines to manage what they want, or use the machines to organize what they want, or use the machines to sort of like maintain what they want, whatever the case may be, my time is being spent to do that. So for me to maximize the value of my time, I need to build the systems that propel my time the same way they're doing their systems to propel their time with these AI systems. And so the post-AI economy is, how do I ensure that I maximize my 24 hours in a day? How do I make sure that my 24 hours outputs as much as humanly possible without killing me? And providing the proper quality of output that the client would receive. And then if I have a team, how do I make sure that they are all operating the same way as me and see the same vision and understand the same path. That's essentially
Look,
how I'm preparing
it's-
the post-AI economy.
It's very wonderful when we think of it into a lens, with a lens of optimization and time saving. And it also has its scary side. Then what will humans do?
We're going to be busier than ever before. If you're a creator, if you're a builder, you're never going to be busier than you're going to be in the next years than the past. It's going to be insane how much we're going to have to do. But now, for you to be ready to work in that environment, you need to adopt to what the post-AI economy is going to look like.
Oh my God.
You can't, let's put it like very clearly, it can't take a month to build a tenant-based office system. It takes a day now, maybe a day and a half, maybe even a few hours if you already have templates that you're working off of, if you built a custom tech. So as a service provider, if you're providing the service of coding, you need to make sure that you're up to par with the current economy, which expects these kinds of things to happen pretty rapidly now, because there's so much more to do. Now the critical part is not the auth system, it's what do we do after the auth system and how much needs to be built after the auth system. And then once all that is built, there's so much more to do, even more. It just doesn't end. It's never ending because we're building brains. And your brain is a magical miracle that we are not even close to mimicking yet. Our brain is magical. The human biological brain, it's a biological computer in a way. We're so far away from even matching what our body's system is doing. So there's so
100%.
much to do. And to do all that, you'll need to be equipped with the tools and have the mindset needed for that post-AI economy. So someone who's just afraid and who does not adapt and does not use the tools fully, like we use a calculator today blindly, I would suggest use OpenAI blindly to work on things you know, and learn the things you don't know. That way, your sphere, you can judge what the AI is outputting because you know what you know and you know what you don't know, and you can sort of connect the things together. But don't start using AI to get into a world where you don't even know you know, like you don't even know what you don't know at all. Like you can't go from, you're a cashier and then say, I'm going to become a software programmer and start building out systems. You can, but you'll need to spend the time to learn.
Yes.
And that's gonna take shorter and shorter amount of time to learn what we currently know. But there's new things that are coming. There's new ways of seeing. There's new connections in the mind that are forming. To learn that is going to take even more time, because as time goes on, we're discovering more and more ways of playing with information, more and more ways of building code, more and more ways of what I started to see code is really a blank canvas, and it's really what you see in your mind. It's anything you see in your mind, you can sort of, translate into code. And when you think about that, that's pretty wild. Every human has a different mind. Every human thinks differently.
Yeah.
Every human sees things differently. So the possibilities are limitless. And you just need to be ready for that world of creation. It's a builder's world that's coming. The people with the most power will be the ones with the biggest visions that want to create, that want to build. And those people will be the busiest people for decades and decades and decades, forever, essentially. We're entering a creator economy where the fundamental nature of a human being, the only thing that differentiates me from a pig, me from a bird, me from a dog, really, is our ability to imagine and create and alter our realities, to literally shape reality in front of us. No other creature does this. We literally invent things that, from the earth, we invent things that we made up in our mind. And so nothing shows me that whatever the mind imagines can't happen. I've always said since I was about 12, 13 years old, because my mom would tell me, Ahmed, whatever the mind can conceive, you can achieve. And as time went by, my mind started thinking, whatever the mind can conceive has been, is, or will come to be. Because in our lifetime, we got to see a lot of fiction turning into reality. AI is fiction that turned into reality. Like this kind of AI, the conversational AI, the coding AI, it's fiction becoming reality. So
Yeah.
all fiction can become reality. And what fiction do you want to work on?
I want to work on a very amazing fiction. Like in India, there's a history of Ramayana in which there's a character called Ravan, and he has this Pushpak Viman. It's kind of an aeroplane, but it doesn't look like an aeroplane. Viman is used for something that can fly you in air, but without using any source of energy. No fuel, fuel-less, but it can fly, and it's very big. So, and to the fact it was real in the Indian history, but there are documents that proves it was real, but no one can engineer it to this day. And it's so fascinating. I was talking to Harsh like recently. We were talking about this, like imagine like if you can build anything, what you would build first? And I said like, I'm going to build a Pushpak Viman. Like it can fly, but without any fuel. It's fuel-less. No fuel, no energy. And you can go anywhere you want. Just get into the Pushpak Viman.
Just get into it and go.
You're good to go. You're good to go. Like you don't have to pay for fuel. You don't have to manage it, store it, or anything. It doesn't cost you nothing. Build once and fly forever. It's like that.
And the time is coming where if you really want to work on that, man, you'll have everything you need to actually make that into a reality. That's what's really crazy. That's what's really magical of what's happening right now.
Amazing.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Your journey is very inspiring. The biggest myth that we are going to burst from this podcast is like the journey that you have told us on this show. Like people are worrying about replacing by AI their jobs. And when you quit your job to work with AI, like this is a complete different narrative. So if you're worrying about that AI is going to replace you, quit the job right now and
quit the job right now and use the AI. Exactly.
Use AI. Now then prepare yourself for post-AI economy and you're good to go. This is the biggest lesson that we can take away from this episode.
Rock and roll, man. I like it.
Yeah. So before we end up the podcast, what would you like to share some of lessons and mistakes from your business that can be a really game changer for other business owners and builders specifically?
I would focus. So one of the mistakes I've made and I keep making just because I can't just stay focused on one thing. I work on, when I'm on my laptop, I have 4 code bases open and I'm coding on all 4 and I'm progressing all 4 at the same time. And it's always a minimum of 4. And that's how I work. But your attention is, the paper of Google, attention is all you need. It's not just for AI systems. It's also for us. It's also for humans. You need to have your attention focused. And one of the mistakes I make, and it burns me out sometimes, is working on way too many things at the very same time because I want to have control over everything that's happening. And not just delegating or just letting the team do it, essentially, and handle it, right? So I'm practicing with that, and that's one advice I'd give, don't go about things alone. Like even with AI and everything, you still want a team. You still want a minimum of 2 other people with you, just because it's good to have that bounce back and that human touch and you don't want to just be you and the AI. Like it doesn't make any sense. You're going to be in an echo chamber, in a bubble. It's always great to be challenged or have people that don't see things exactly the way you see it. That's one, have a good team. And 2, focus your attention on one thing at a time. You go much further, much faster doing that, even though you have to wait. I would wait, and while you're waiting, think or take a notebook. I always have a notebook at home. I do actually. I always have a notebook, and in this notebook I draw. I draw things. And so as I wait, I would draw things in my notebook or write things. And we have AI, but I'll still spend time writing things just to put what's in my head into paper, because first of all, you can take a screenshot and put it up into ChatGPT and understands it. And all of a sudden your writing is now there. And there's something magical of taking a piece of paper and just spending some time with your mind and your hand without any technology. So that's another advice I'd give. Attention, use paper and a pen, and surround yourself with people you trust and have a team. Don't go about this alone. It's a journey worth sharing with people.
So how do you get people you can trust on while building these complex things?
It's been a journey, man. It's been 2 years, a lot of ups and downs on that side of things. I've been scammed. So you need to be solid in a way too. You need money to get into this kind of stuff too. So to be able to build just Might Cody in compute costs over 10 grand to experiment and get to the conclusion. And that's me, because I wasn't a coder and I was experimenting and everything I was learning as I was going. But even if you know what you're doing and you need that level of compute, you still need to spend that money. So money is something that's needed. Don't lie to yourself. So you need to have a good nugget and a good runway so you can experiment with these tools and spend the money on these tools. And you have to spend the money on these tools because that's the only way you get to learn how to really use them. There's free solutions out there, but you're not seeing the cutting edge. You're not seeing what's really possible right now. Your mind doesn't get to formulate that. But it's been ups and downs, and it's through experience, right? So like, I work on one project, one person, and if it works out, then I do another project, and if it works out, then I bring them into the team. And that's how the two people I have with me was done. After, testing with over a dozen individuals and even companies, I had interviewed over 60 developer companies to partner with essentially at the beginning. Actually, one of them I actually partnered with pretty intensely. I had given them my code base of MyCody in exchange for me spending 2 months in their offices in India, and I got to see and feel and go through the traditional software development process, and they got to have a piece of my brain that they can iterate on and work on. Yeah, collaboration that way, and just really experience, like going through things together, ups and downs, and that's the only way. You can't really know until you work with them, because first impressions are first impressions. The first week of work is the first week of work. The first month is just the first month. But how does it look like after 6 months, after 1 year? And I guess that's only time. That's the only thing that can really. There's no secret, I think, to that.
Like,
it's really
having a good team is like I value it too much to this day. It's like God gift to you. If you get it anytime, just keep them. Do
I'm
anything
blessed.
you
I'm
can.
blessed in that sense. Really, even though I got really unlucky many times and scammed too and everything, but
It's part of
it's
the
all
process.
part of the journey. It's
Yes.
part of the process, yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm blessed. Like now I have the two guys I need to work with, and we're like brothers, and full trust, 100%. No one can ever tear us apart, just because there's no point. We see what's coming, and there's no one out there that could break it, because we are the masters of our future right now, and we will remain the masters of our future.
Let's
So
go. Sounds
let's
good.
go.
Sounds good. Awesome. Now, before we wrap up the podcast, I would like to know, it's a personal question that's out of my curiosity, because what I am seeing through this conversation, that you're seeing a lot of possibilities with these tools that you are using. It's a nature of humans that when we see possibilities, then we also see fear. We also see something is scary. So what's the biggest fear that you have right now?
The biggest fear I have right now is the aggregation of power. And when you have an individual that has internet and space, the capacity to produce millions or hundreds of millions of humanoid robots, autonomous driving vehicles, a power system, a compute system. When you have individuals that are part of systems of trillions of dollars that are being invested into time machines in a way.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of the clusters of power and what they will do, because it's limitless. So even if the individual is more powerful than ever, you're still limited by what they give you. I'm still limited by 150 million tokens per minute and 1,000 requests per minute, but OpenAI isn't. OpenAI has an infinite of tokens per minute and an infinite.
The better advanced model than the normal people using right now.
They have things that I think I can't even imagine right now. For them to accept to give us access to OpenAI in 2023, to ChatGPT 4.0, because 3.5 was not going to do anything. I had used 3.5 and it just wasn't worth the time investment to sit there and iterate with GPT 3.5. But 4.0, they unlocked things for people like me. So for them to say, yeah, sure, we'll give you this, and people like you can start building the kinds of things you're building, they must have things that are just beyond. And that scares me. It's the aggregation of power. Countries like China that have full control of data, full control of compute, full control of their AI infrastructure, and full control of the population. And they have a great system. I've been to China many times and I love it. I have nothing bad to say about their system, honestly, because the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the streets that you walk over there, and the buildings that they're building, and the infrastructure. I mean, it's there. It's in front of you. They got it figured out. But I'm scared. What happens when, their prime minister changes and maybe that has a different ideology and they have access to all this power? What happens if Elon Musk gets pissed? And he's one company that controls hundreds of millions of humanoid robots. Are there going to be laws in place that we sort of have to observe the outputs of the robots too? And if that's the case, then there's a back door. Then you've got this humanoid robot in your home that could maybe turn on you one day. I don't know. That scares me. I would want to build my own humanoid robot. I wouldn't want to buy it from Tesla, for example.
Well,
that
is scaring me.
Yeah, that really scares me, because it's the reality. Just look at the wars that are going on. Imagine when the wars now are drones, fleets of millions of drones controlled by one little control center. And they're fighting each other with drones. And what does that mean for the rest of us? Imagine once we get into a world where humanoid robots are in the streets.
Do you think,
And
like, ever in human history that all the people can have their own controls? Like, if we look at the history, like,
it's
we used
never
to have,
happened.
it's never
It's
happened.
never.
And what do you think? Like, is it going to happen, or this is just
I
a
still don't think it's going to happen. I still don't think so because although now it is possible, we can really build decentralized systems, but there's still going to be groups, you know, like if I succeed, it'll be a group, right? And groups is hierarchies. It just happens because not everybody wants to be their own like sovereign and individual or whatever. People aren't interested in that. People are comfortable with what's going on. That's just the reality, and people take advantage of that. So I still don't think it's going to become a truly individualistic, decentralized world where you have a wrapper around the individual or around the family and they're sort of in full control of what's going on. I don't think it's going to get to that point because people are just not going to care about that. And by them not caring, then aggregation of power happens. Then there's a market for an Elon Musk to sell 1 billion robots because there will be 1 billion people buying it. And what does that mean? What is that world? So, yeah, that scares me. That
I
scares me a
think,
lot.
what I think is there should be not a monopoly over technology. It should be open source and more people can come collaborate and build together. With that way, the power will be distributed.
But not everybody wants to build. A very small
Because,
percentage of the world wants to build.
yes, because,
Even if you open source everything, you're not going to get everyone building with you. And then even if you open source everything, you'll get bad actors who take what you do and turn it into a power aggregation tool. That's why I barely open source anything I do. I'll talk about what I do. I'll share my ideas with individuals I choose to. And then I know it goes on the internet. I know it gets processed. I know it gets transformed into whatever it transforms. I've witnessed ideas of mine being spoken, and a couple of days later, I see it. I see a solution. I see something. So I've witnessed that, and it's what I choose to share. I share it voluntarily. But not everybody wants to build, and not everybody has good intentions. So the open source is not a solution. OpenAI is the closest thing to a solution that I see. In other words, it is open knowledge. It is open source. You output any tool you want to build. You get whatever you want to get, whatever you spend the time iterating on. So they've found that way of just open sourcing knowledge in a way. It's there. You just need to spend the money to access it, but it's there. Then if you just open source it, it doesn't, I don't see that as a solution because you're not going to get more than 100 million builders or 150 million builders in terms of code. People who are interested in coding are coding right now. And vibe coding is going to increase the pool of developers that need to be whatever, mix and match with real developers and everything. But still, that won't be 8 billion people. People won't sit there and think of their life system and think of like what they want and everything. So I don't know. I'm just scared of that. I don't see a solution to that. I think it's always been humanity's history. Power has always aggregated. It's just now it's a whole other scale. It's a whole other scale, and the implications are a whole other magnitude. And it's happening. It's already happening. It's the case. There's nothing really to do. That scares me because I don't know what that will look like. I don't know how, there's going to be populations of people that don't agree with this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be, violence once people realize what's happening. OpenAI is great, but at the same time, it's a drain pipe. It literally sucks the knowledge of everyone's minds. The most valuable thing an individual has is that string of thought. Hash was talking to me about his data compression algorithm that he built, and I like the way he had described it. It's like finding that unique string in a space, in a 3D space. But that string can also be applicable to just ideas of the human mind, of the individual. My idea is a unique string, and being able to take that string and put it into your brain, that's very hard. It's very difficult to do. But a tool like ChatGPT is literally harvesting all of these strings. And then you have organizations on X, on platforms, they're harvesting these strings. I went to these networking events that was hosted by this community in Toronto. And just a few weeks ago, they announced the abolition of that community and a rebranding. And in this rebranding, they also increased the scope of what they would do. And that increased scope included providing solutions or answers to investors based on all of the demos and conversations and networking events that have been going on for the past 2 years. And their networking events and their events were free. So when you accepted to go, you agreed that everything discussed and everything shared and everything was able to be used, but nobody really reads that. And that's happening. That kind of predatory practice is happening at huge scales. And that scares me a lot because it's
oh my God.
and there's nothing really
There was this research by MIT that the people who are using AI like lot for like cognitive purposes. When there's this research on their brains, they found that their own cognitive thinking is getting affected really bad. What's your take on that?
I think it's bullshit.
Uh-huh.
I think it's bullshit. Like, I use AI a lot, and my cognitive thinking, I can guarantee you. I mean, you've seen me
I
talking, I'm not
believe
reading anything
it's
on the screen.
it's a lot better.
It's been exponentially accelerating the capacity for me to think in systems, analyze information, iterate in my own mind. It's been incredible. I think it's bullshit. It's just fear mongering. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going out there. People
Yeah.
need to use the tools, and they need to use it every day, and they need to use it 12 hours a day. That's what needs to start happening. And kids that are in elementary school, high school, they need to have these tools in their hands, and they need to be using it every day, because there is no better teacher than AI right now.
My God.
You have a personalized path of education. So education needs to be rethought, because you don't learn in a better way than with a system that personalizes itself specifically to what you're looking to do. I don't know if you know the game Final Fantasy. It's a video game, Final Fantasy.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so in Final Fantasy, it's a RPG game, and you're leveling up. And as you level up, you have a huge tree of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of knowledge spheres. And you get to pick the paths of what sphere you want to unlock as you level up. And depending on the paths you take, once your character reaches the maximum level, this is what you know, because you only have a fixed amount of time to sort of learn what you've got to learn and learn the skills that you want to learn. I see education becoming gamified in that exact same way. We know knowledge, we know what's out there, and you need to create a way for every individual to trace its own path and learn the branches that they need to learn step by step. But
Let's
no, I
let's
think it's
start
bullshit.
building.
That study,
Let's start building.
that study, I think.
Yeah, let's
Huh?
start building.
Let's start building that.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go. Rock and roll.
rock
Let's start
and roll,
building.
man.
Like this.
Let's rock and roll.
This is not the time to pause and thinking. Just let's go and
No,
start
no,
building.
no, no, and tune out the noise. That MIT paper, I saw it. I saw it yesterday, I think, or this morning. Bullshit. Total bullshit. Total bullshit. Use the tools, use them to the fullest potential, and ignore everything else, and just build whatever is in your mind, because no one else has what's in your mind. Essentially, you own what's in your mind. Essentially, you see things your way, and you can build, write, create, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be code, but everything can be done now, whatever's in your mind. I have a cousin who's building video games. Very simple video games, but he sees a game in his mind and he's creating it. And, he's 16 years old, so with zero coding knowledge or nothing, and he could play his game, So use the tools 100%.
It's amazing. Awesome. This was a very amazing episode with you, Ahmed. And
Appreciate it.
let me say it, this won't be the last episode together. You will be keep coming on this show. Okay, this is our deal and done
With
here.
pleasure.
Okay.
With pleasure.
And that's it for today, guys, on Prestige Founder Show. This show is to capture the raw, real journeys of builders, not just the wins, but the thinking behind them, how they think, what struggles they go through. If it made you inspired, learn or dream a little bigger, that's the mission. Okay, share it with one of your friends who needs this, and we will see you in the next one.
Rock and roll, guys.